Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mind the Inside Gap. Hello, Shruti. How are you doing?
All well, Jess. How are you doing? It's so exciting to be back for episode 2. Before we run down on what we're going to do in this episode, do you want us to quickly get a recap of what we discussed till date?
Yes, I think that's a great idea. So, on our first episode, if you are new to our podcast, we were talking about how to budget for a social listening tool. So, I encourage you to, look back at the links. And if you're curious about this specific topic, we had about 25 minutes we discussed about this subject. And also to give you a little bit of intro about me, I have been working in the insights industry for more than 10 years. I have done qual research using all sorts of methods from, funny interviews until now we're using GenAI and even social listening, mixed methods. Shruti, you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Shruti. I'm based out of Mumbai in India, and I have about 12 years of experience in the consulting and the insight space. I've done everything in the sales cycle, everything in the delivery cycle, and here I am sitting with Jess discussing it now. So it's really nice that to have you all listening in to us. So what we're going to be discussing in our second episode is talking about the biggest important question which all of you ask of all of your tools and vendors and everybody: data coverage. I mean, come on, Jess. That is something very important that everybody asks us. Do you have all the platforms in? Which platforms do you cover? How
Yes.
much of it do you cover?
We get that slide or that question right in the room. What are you paying for when you approach these platforms, these tools, and you get all of these fancy front ends? What are you paying for?
Yep. I mean, data coverage, what does it mean first?
The first thing that has to be clear here is there is no tool, nothing that has a full fire hose of the internet.
Yeah.
What that means is, and to put it in an example, if you open your window and you start screaming, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to listen to you and reply to you. Some people will be inside of the car. Some people will have the headphones. So you cannot reach everybody. It's impossible. Nobody has it. No LLMs. It doesn't matter if you ask your Claude, your GPT. It doesn't matter. They are not covering the full internet. And I think if you start from that perspective, everything changes. The way you see the platforms, the ways you see coverage, the way you see research and insights changes.
Like more often than not, we talk about including many sources, not just 5, 6, 7. But data coverage can mean different things to different people, right? It can mean, do you cover one platform fully? Like Meta, which is a big, big thing. You can't just track everything on every platform. And the first question is why? I think to go back a step, the regulations, I think the awareness about GDPR, the DPDP Act, which is coming up in India, and most of the Southeast Asian countries are also going to come up with such data protection acts. You cannot track personal accounts. So if your influencer, your business, your competitor does not have a creator or a business account on Meta, that definitely cannot be tracked. So unless you're manually going and searching and looking for it, and data coverage would mean how many platforms or how much within a platform. So width and depth, both of it. I think that's how I would define the question of what is data coverage. One thing that people always forget is data coverage is not free even for the tools, the platforms, and the vendors. You have to pay to get that data. So please remember, at any point of time, if these platforms decide to change their APIs, decide to up the package that they're going to be selling, you would have to be aware that such a thing is possible and such a thing will impact data coverage. Now, this is an impact of a data coverage. It does not happen very often, but it does happen. And there is always a monetary implication to it, which is why all platforms and all vendors cannot promise absolute data coverage within the budget that you have.
That's a very good point, Shruti. And I think that makes me come to a second question when we think about data coverage, which is why we have different coverage within the platforms, which makes me think about the industry and how things have shifted. Now, something else I wanted to share when I was doing some, thinking about the past. And since I have been doing social listening, I think 2012, or that's how all this industry has been running. I mean, very rudimentary at the beginning, I say, but this industry has changed a lot. So I like to think about it in three blocks now. So the first block of social listening and we think when we think about the data coverage is that the platforms, the tools will have more or less the same data. And they were fighting for the front end. Who has the best charts, the best, the representation of the data, the word clouds, like what
Sure.
was easy to use. And that was a sales point for a lot of people, how user friendly the platform was. And then I'll say something that accelerated a change for the industry was the Cambridge Analytical scandal
Yeah.
that fragmented the data. So more restrictions, like people shut doors, privacy, API restrictions. There were a lot of issues, right? That fragmented everything. And then you get the second, like I'll say, big shift where the platforms were fighting also for data coverage.
Yep.
So who has the full access of the firehose of X? Who has TikTok so and so? Who has LinkedIn so and so? So that's the second shift. And I say the most recent shift has been on formats. Before on the internet, we were texting, right? Then you get the audio, the video, the images. So no platform can give us a priority, all the data coverage plus all the formats, and people start to being specialized. So when you think about the industry and you think about data coverage, I think you can think about the evolution of cable TV
Yeah.
and streaming,
Yep.
where you have you on cable TV you have this package where you have everything, and then on streaming you have, oh, but I want the Netflix and I want the Hulu and I want the Peacock and I want all of these things. Here is kind of the same,
Yeah.
where people in general have several tools because
Yeah.
they change from tool to what they so and so call platform. They change
Yeah.
and they have all of these things. So when I think about why they are not the same, I think about this big picture of how everything evolved.
Yep, absolutely. I think the Cambridge scandal was a perfect base, on top of which I think we have a lot of guidelines like GDPR. Please be aware that your tools need to be GDPR compliant to have data coverage. So make sure you ask the right questions. Now, like we were discussing in the beginning, what you spoke about is so clear as to the depth of data that each platform can do. Now, the question of data coverage also comes from, let's say, can you have track hashtags or not? That's not the same case for every platform. TikTok just came up with their API. And very important question about data coverage is that what kind of platform are you running? Is it video analytics?
Yes.
Is it social listening per se? And their data coverage would definitely depend on it, because there are companies who are media monitoring companies.
Yeah.
They would have social media data sets, but may not have the depth of coverage that is required. They may rely heavily on media, So
Yeah.
any media that you want to cover, be it Economic Times, be it the New York Times, etc., they would have access to everything. And you go to them for certain use cases, which we obviously discussed the importance of it in the first episode, where we said use case is paramount when you look at everything. And that holds true. That's Bible even for data coverage. And how do you decide which platform is right for you? That's based on your use case again. And that data coverage, let's say if you're looking for someone and your use cases are PR related and you're the PR team, you should look for someone who has more media coverage. And another thing about data coverage that you need to understand is that not all platforms store all of your data for all of the lifetime.
And then the place that it's where it's stored has to also comply with certain
Yeah.
privacy regulations, and some brands care about that too, so they ask you where the data store, for how long it's going to be stored, when I would have access, which actually lead us to think about the historical data, right? Not only where it's stored, but what are the implications? What are you looking at? Do you actually need it? What are your thoughts, Shruti? I know you are you are very opinionated on the historical data point
Oh,
front.
yes. I am absolutely opinionated on that front. I would say If a platform is saying they'll be able to store your data for about 15 months from when you have started, and let's say 15 months past data, I think that's good enough. Let's not say, oh, you hold my 5 years data. What are you going to do with it? I still hold that truth. There is no need for you to hold 5 years worth of data. Those trends are gone. Those benchmarks are gone. 1.5 years to maximum 2 years is good enough for you to do your forecasting and for you to have updates on. Let's not blow up our budget on it.
That's a very good point, Shruti. That makes me come to a second question. What do you do if you are a SMB and the top executives, or you are even a bigger an enterprise company? They tell you, why I'm paying 6 figures for a social listening tool if I can go to my Claude or Perplexity, I don't know, any tool.
Sure.
You can go to GPT and ask a question about the brand, and they have these sources. They might be enough. What I'm doing with these social listening tools nowadays, I think that's the
Oh my
holy
God.
grail right now.
So, do you know this? We're mothers, so we know this rhyme: "Row, row, row your boat." Uh, if you want to be merrily blowing or flowing down the stream, you go to a platform. If you don't want to be merrily going down the stream, you go to your GPT and Claude. Now, Claude and GPT are great for understanding the gist, but not for looking at the data. It's not going to be able to pull up 32,000 posts for you. Like, who are you kidding? Like, you're going to max out on your pro plan. So the first thing is that you're paying those 6 figures to see all of your 32,000 posts covered. And in addition to those 32,000 posts, get a sentiment against it and segregate it into themes, which is what essentially you need your data coverage to do. I want better data coverage because I want to know what the sentiment is. I want better data coverage because I want to understand how many unique consumers I have online whose voices are there. So GPT and Claude, while great, are not final solutions because compliances are going to change very drastically for both these platforms. And those changes in compliance will heavily restrict them from accessing data. So qualitative insights, great. Quantitative insights, no. And your data coverage, the reason why you're even looking at that is because you want quants to support your quants.
Yes, I think to summarize, I think they call it traceability, being able to trace, to click and see what's behind the data and the statement, what you're saying, because you have now AI summaries and all of these kind of LLMs within the social media listening platforms. It's just you can click and see what's supporting that data, because what is happening also today is that LLMs are giving you a false impression that they are covering more than a social listening platform. So you ask the question to GPT, and what are they basing these statements or these things from? You are not getting the same visibility you are getting on the social listening. That might change on what gets covered. Maybe the fight, it's not necessarily tool versus tool, social listening tool versus social listening tool. We have a new player when it comes to data and the way that people need help and support. Why people need this data anyways? Why brands need the data? They want to answer certain questions. Who's going to deliver those insights? So is it even mention based pricing? Does that make sense today? Is that what the social listening platforms should be selling? Is it about how many mentions, or is it about getting to the insight, the actionable insight? And here maybe is where those services, teams supporting the insights, it's really making and being the game changer, because if you are in Claude or you are in GPT or Gemini, you are by yourself. But if you have a platform, you have a team of people that you can talk to, and you can humanize AI. And you can get rid of, I think the Harvard Business Review talk about trend slop. Like, they are strategies asking for trends to these LLMs. They're getting slop. You need direction, you need strategies, and maybe that's also a match point for the social listening platforms.
Yep. I think one of the last questions that we should definitely discuss about is the methodology to which we test data coverage, and how do we actually ensure data coverage is there for our use case, for our industry. What you said is completely true.
Mm.
They are the third dimension. They are changing the way that we look at data as such, because we can have access to the data faster, right? But always remember, any percentages or anything that Claude and GPT throw at you is from a sample data.
Mm.
And that's how that works. Now, data coverage and using them for data coverage, I don't think is the right way to go about it, because most platforms that give out an official API access will be gated. I mean, GPT and Claude will just cannot even go in there to get any kind of data out there, right? Like we were discussing, APIs are paid for. So urge you to be in the compliant manner, urge you to take what GPT and Claude give you with a pinch of salt.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go gently down the stream. You don't want to come hard up the stream. Let's not go down that route. And you are going to see so many people on LinkedIn saying, use Claude. Here's a beautiful dashboard with Claude.
Yes.
And
Yes.
there's so many people who are going to say that the dashboard is beautiful. The visualizations that you were talking about are great, the way that they represent data. And that's what you need to use Claude and GPT for, not your data coverage. And I also feel at the end, the methodology with which you should use them is go to the platform, get your data right. The way to test it is make sure they give you a list of top websites for your data for the last 1 year. That will make you understand what kind of data coverage the vendor has or the platform has. Or if you have a list of websites, get them verified. Put them in your contract. Don't forget that.
Yes.
Put them in your contract.
Yes. And when you think about the methodology, I also wanted to add that we have to feel comfortable with the margin of error. Like we have had this in traditional research, but for some reason, when we go to social listening, we want to have every single mention. We wanted to have everything mapped out perfectly. So if you type the brand, you want that brand to show the post specifically. You don't want any bots. You want it to be clean, like 100%. There is no possibility that might happen. So in LLMs, you call it hallucination or so and so, the margin of error. In this case, you have to be also aware that these things happen and it's normal. You are not going to be working on beauty and you're going to type any brand or product and you're going to get exactly all the posts related to your brand, to your influencer, the people using exactly your product. There is no way. So I think keeping that in mind, it's important. So that if you keep a consistent methodology when it comes to how you write the query, what data sources are part of each data set when you're looking at yourself and the competitors, then you have something, then you can compare, then you can think about a trend. But if you are plugging APIs and things and your accounts or your tokens only from your brand and you don't have the rest, that's not apples to apples. You have to think about how I unplug myself because I have all the data from me, but I don't have all the data from the rest. How I look at it from a macro perspective where the field is playing for everybody. I think it's important and to keep in mind.
So true. I mean, the apples to apples comparison was just gold. I mean, please remember, you can't just plug in your tokens. You're going to get comments from your posts and say, oh, my share of voice is high, but you don't have the competitor posts, right? And you don't have comments on the posts. So no, apples to apples comparison is very important. One thing that I definitely want to highlight towards the end of our discussion as we're getting there is that industry-wise, data coverage is different. Let's say you are a pharma company, you will rely heavily on forums where people tend to write more. I'm including Reddit into a forum as well right now. I'm not separating it out. Of course, now people have become more vocal with Monjaro and all of them, and they're going ahead and posting their stories on Instagram. But most of the rare diseases and things like that, pharma can focus on where you have more forum coverage. If you are in the FMCG space, you look at Instagram coverage or TikTok coverage, maybe. And if you are in the automotive space as well, I think Instagram, TikTok, forums, all of them are great. But if you're looking at trends, please remember X is where it begins. There is just something about X and memes that just doesn't go away. So look at a platform which gives you a lot of access to X. And at the end of my post now, because I want to throw a question at you, Jess, what do you think about data refresh times with respect to data coverage? Because I know a lot of these platforms refresh maybe or give you data at different times, like 72 hours, 24 hours. Does that matter at all? How would you look at it?
I think you have to feel comfortable with that margin of error. You need to look for any different stream that is more live, let's say. Maybe look at that first and then see how you can find that trend staying over time with the other one that has the lag. Maybe, how would you do it? Now I'm so curious.
I would say always do N-1. So if you're looking for data till, let's say, the 12th of May, wait for the 13th of May and then take the data. That's
Okay.
how I would look at it, because most platforms, I think, refresh every 2 hours their data is.
Yeah.
So if you do it like just one day after, you should have entire data sets for today. But some platforms just don't give you that data. So be sure to ask those questions when you have a conversation about data coverage, right? I mean, we're looking to understand how we can empower you to ask the right questions. And I think that's what Jess and I were looking at, because the whole question is that there is a myth, Jess, that share of voice is directly proportional to your market share.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find one single scientific paper to prove that. But data coverage wise, a lot of people look to prove this by improving data coverage.
Yeah, I have seen that too. And um, when I think about data coverage, I also think what's going to happen in the future. It's not that data is not going to be important, but knowing that you can trace it, that you can trust it, that you can check what, like you were saying, and feeling comfortable with the fact that you cannot have it all as a researcher.
Yeah.
And having a partner that it's not a tool, it's not only a software. I think that's very important. So we're moving what they call themselves tools at the beginning, right? And then they
Yeah.
call themselves platforms. I think the future it's insight systems. They have to generate insights.
Yep, absolutely. I know I'm repeating myself 100 times, but I think people who are listening to us should understand that these are the questions you need to ask. How deep can you go into the data? Can you cover everything within that platform? And how many platforms do you cover? And region wise, these platforms are different. So know what industry standards are there. Please talk to your the pre-sales people or your vendor or your analyst to ensure that this is there, because you don't want to come to a stage where you have prepared your insights and you're presenting and someone says, oh, but is Blue Sky included?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So just ensure that data coverage wise, you both looked at the width and the depth.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way actually to finish our episode. Thank you so much for this conversation, Shruti. And I look forward for more.
We look forward for more too. Everybody, please roll it down the street gently. You want to have a happy life. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Enjoy this episode? Follow, share, subscribe.